Hello and welcome. In today's video, I'm going to be having a look at my 2024 in review and looking forward towards 2025 and thinking about what I would maybe want to achieve both planty and personal. And I know most of you are here for planty stuff, so I will be talking about that in the first part of the video and talking about more about some personal stuff in the second part of the video. So if you're not bothered about that kind of stuff, I totally understand, and then you can turn off at that point if you wish to. But before I get into the video, hi, my name's Alexis and this is Wild Houseplants. I'm a houseplant enthusiast and I also work as a houseplant technician, so when I'm not looking after my own plants, I'm looking after other people's. If you don't follow me over on Instagram and TikTok, you can find me there at Wild Houseplants. And if you do enjoy this video today, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button below because it really does help out my channel. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about some planty stuff first. I want to talk about some planty highlights from the year, so plants that have done really well, that have not necessarily surprised me, but like that have brought me a lot of joy this year. And of course, there are also some plants that have not gone so well, and that's okay too, because that's kind of all part of it. And I think the main thing is when you have a particular plant that's doing really, really well, the fear is always there that like, what if something goes wrong with this plant? And I did have a plant like that this year. I had a couple actually. And you learn stuff about that as well. Like you can't have all your plants looking amazing all the time. Things happen, life happens, nature happens. And so you have to kind of like learn to roll with the punches basically. So I'm going to be looking at that and then finishing off that planty section by just sort of my main learnings from the year, I guess, and things that I'm going to take with me into 2025. And then after that, I'm just going to touch on a few personal things from this year and also looking ahead to 2025 as well. So yeah, let's get into the video. Okay, so let's start by talking about some plant successes from the year. And if you have been watching my channel for a while, then many of these may look familiar to you. So yeah, that you may well have already heard me talking about these, but I don't think I can look back at the year without thinking about some of these plants. So the first one I think is my Monstera deliciosa. So I bought my Monstera deliciosa, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago maybe, as sort of like this sort of size plant, and I'll put in a picture. That's the earliest picture that I can find of it, and that would be kind of within a few months of me purchasing that. And then yeah, I did that kind of thing of, it's one of those, it's like probably the plant that I've learned the most about plant care from in many ways. And I look back at some of the pictures of me looking after that plant or how I chose to display it and stuff, and I just would never do it like that anymore. And so it's so interesting to always like look back and see, you know, what I've learned along the way, and still having a plant that you had, you know, 4 or 5 years ago is really rewarding, because it's like, wow, okay, yeah, so I've come a long way. Me and that plant have come a long way. Yeah, as anyone who's got a Monstera deliciosa, they grow so fast if so you give them a decent amount of light and you get the watering right. I generally find that they have a really chunky root system, so they don't need as much water as many people think that they do. And the main sort of things that I see people do wrong, if you like, is plant them in a way, like a massive pot, and then like the roots are just sort of drowning in soil, and not understanding how best to display them. So a lot of the time, and I did this, and I'll put some pictures in, is using one of those sort of, coir poles that you get on like Amazon or whatever, and then trying to pull all the plant into the center to attach it onto this pole. But it never looks very nice. And then depending on where the light is coming from, the leaves won't necessarily be facing the right way. And yeah, I just don't have a lot of love for those kind of poles. I just don't think they look very nice, and I just don't think they're the best way to display the plant. And when I changed that up, got rid of that and put it onto like a trellis that I made out of bamboo, that was when the plant completely and utterly changed and started giving me some really fantastic growth. And because of the way that the trellis sat at the back, it meant that I could present the plant in a much more aesthetic way, basically, and with all the leaves facing in one direction, which made display of that plant just much more attractive. I also, then the plant got too big for the area, so I ended up chopping the top section. I think it was a 3-leaf cutting at the time, and the leaves were a fairly decent size. There was single, maybe a few double fenestrations. I'll put some pictures in, I can't exactly remember now. But when I made that cut, I ended up chopping up the entire plant. So now I have quite a lot of Monstera all over my house. But the apple of my eye is that main top section, which I cut, which was just kind of like a medium-sized 3-leaf cutting, and is now an absolute beast. And so I did struggle a little bit to get that cutting rooting, and I tried a few different ways. I tried moss, I tried water, and in the end it was when I stuck it into perlite, like damp perlite, that it really took off. And then from there I decided to move it into semi-hydro, which was the biggest game changer, and the roots went absolutely mad. And I've ended up probably repotting it 3 times this year since I got it into semi-hydro, because it absolutely loves it. And and then displaying it, like I say, onto like a sort of bamboo support where all the leaves face that way, and then getting it under a grow light. And those few things, semi-hydro, getting the support right, and getting it under a grow light, that plant just took off. And now it is an absolute beast. It's probably bigger than when I chopped it in the first place, but I'm going with it. I've had to change out the grow light for a different grow light because it was getting too close to the lamp that grow light was in, and I didn't want the leaves to burn. So yeah, she's just really doing so well now, and I'll put some pictures in of how she's looking today. And yeah, I'm just really excited to see how she continues to go. She's going to need a really big space. She's going to grow at the space that she's in now, but I will touch on that a little bit more when I talk about personal stuff a little bit later in the video. So yeah, I feel like she's the first one to mention this year, just because those few things that I've changed made a massive difference. And that was a really clear one where I could see that she was just going bananas and growing so fast right in front of my eyes. And then each leaf was just more and more rewarding as the fenestrations increased and the size of the leaf increased. And she's just hardening off a new leaf now, and it's the 24th, it's Christmas Eve today. So yeah, that's just been amazing to watch. So I couldn't really talk about successes without mentioning her. So that's the first one to talk about. The second one, and I have also made a care video about this plant, which I will link in the description below, is my Alocasia Sabrina. And she's another one that's been with me for maybe 3 years now, and she's always done well. I've never really had too much drama with her, but the leaves that she gave me, the amount of leaves that she gave me this summer and the size of them was just amazing. And again, I'll put in some clips, and I'll put in some clips of how she looks today as well, just so you've got a bit of reality, because she has lost a few leaves in the cooler months, and I have actually given her a grow light now so that she can continue to grow, and she has just popped a new growth point. A new leaf is coming out, so I'm really excited about that. But yeah, she's another one that's just like, when people come into my house, that's the plant they go, wow, because she's a very common alocasia. If you know about alocasia, then you'll be like, yeah, so what, the Sabrina. It's not like, she's not trendy, she's not rare, but to people that don't know so much about houseplants, she's just such a striking plant, you know, with those elephant ear leaves and those stripy stems. And I think she will, as long as she's happy and healthy in my collection, she will always be part of it, I hope. And I have other ones as well. I have a smaller Sabrina. Again, I'll put in some clips that I've grown completely from corms. And I've got another one behind me as well, which is a rescue from my mum's Sabrina. And I ended up giving her another one that I had so that she could still have one in her collection. And I've grown hers back to health. So I feel like that's a plant I've really got my head around this year, because I have basically grown what is now a really kind of good sized plant completely from scratch. I have rescued one that was an absolute mushy, rotten mess and brought it back to health. And I've managed to size up my big main one as well. So all in all, that's another one that's just, I feel like I've really kind of can tick an understanding for, and always just brings a lot of joy to my collection. And I hate saying this, touch wood, I've had a lot of issues with pests this year, but I haven't had pests on that plant. Now, that is not to say that plant is pest resistant, because alocasias in general are very attractive to spider mites. I don't know why, and I do clean her leaves regularly to make sure that she doesn't get pesty, because I'm literally I love her so much. But she hasn't ever had pests. And now I've said that, I'm very anxious. But yes, she's done well for me in that sense as well. So I've not had to battle with her with pests like I have on many of my other plants. So for that, she gets a super gold star as well. So yes, Sabrina is number 2 on the success list of the year. Number 3, and I'll group them together, because if you watched my favourites video, which is 2 or 3 videos ago, I talked about this, the Anthurium clarinervium, and also my crystallinum hybrid, which I don't have here right now, but I'll pop in a picture of that one, because they look very similar. And just like at the beginning of this year, I think this clarinervium had maybe 2 leaves. And again, she just suddenly, everything came aligned, or in the summer, and she started putting out a lot more new growth. And some of these leaves are, they're really good size. And she's just super rewarding now. And for me, that was getting them into this coarse semi-hydro mix. And you can just see all those roots in there. I love Anthurium roots. They're like udon noodles, they're just so chunky and lovely. And yeah, you can just see just how many roots are going on in there. And I don't want to repot her right now, because that's one of my learnings, I think, from this year, which I'll get into later, is if your plants are happy, just don't mess with them too much. I have been known to definitely mess with things too much, and I think I haven't helped many of my plants in some ways this year, but I'll get into that a bit more a bit later. But yeah, she's really happy at the moment. It's winter. She is fine. So I'm not going to repot her right now. I will wait now until the spring. And I think maybe in the spring I might get her into, because there's lots of nice aerial roots here which aren't really that are sort of crying out to grow into something. You can see this root is just literally growing out here. That I will maybe get her into a tower pot, so a big tower pot that's slightly taller, and then get some moss around the top bit here, just so those roots have got something to grow into. But for now, I'm just not going to mess with her. I very much feel like December, January is like survival for your houseplants. Let's just get through the winter. Let's not upset the apple cart too much. Let's just focus on giving them what they need to keep going through the winter, and not upset them too much, because light levels are super low, temperatures are low. It's just not their natural habitat. These are tropical houseplants, and so I just want to make sure that they are okay until the spring comes, and then they can kick themselves off again and start going bananas. But yeah, if she continues like this, next spring and summer. I am so excited to see where it goes, because she's holding on to 6 leaves at the moment. How many leaves could she hold on to? I don't know, but I'm excited to see. So that's this one, and also my crystallinum hybrid, which I've actually grown from really quite a small plant. Again, I can put in a picture of what it was when I bought, what it was like when I got it. But that's another one that's just sized up and been really easy for me. I don't own, I've talked about this before, a huge amount of anthurium in my collection, and there are a few that I would like to add to my collection, but at the same time I just don't really want to be adding a lot of drama plants to my collection right now. And again, I will talk about that a little bit more when I talk about personal stuff a bit later. But yeah, I just kind of want to feel like the anthuriums that I know that I'll get on with, I will, you know, all that people say are really generally quite easygoing. Like the one on top of my list is the Anthurium pallidiflorum. That is definitely one that I would love to add, because I don't have any strappy anthuriums, and people generally say it's quite rewarding, grows quite fast, and isn't too drama like. So that might be one to add. But yeah, other ones like the Reucroianum, the Queen Anthurium, and the Veitchii, which are stunning plants, but everyone sort of struggles with them, and I just feel like I don't need that right now. So yeah, but I feel like I've got a good understanding of these two, and if I was to bring any others into my collection, I would grow them in the same way that I have these, because I think that seems to be working for them. So yes, those two are next. And then my Alocasia Sarian, I did make a reel on this, but basically 3 years ago maybe, my husband came back from the garden centre with an Alocasia Sarian. And the Sarian is a hybrid between the Zebrina, which I talked about earlier, and also the Michelitziana, which I will pop on the screen so you know the parentage. But yeah, he came back from the garden centre with that, and he paid like £6 for it because it was in the bargain basement section. Now, what I should have understood at the time, but I didn't really, was that there would be a reason why it was in the bargain basement section. And I didn't see it straight away, but actually it had a spider mite infestation. And I really struggled to get rid of them. I just couldn't get rid of them at the time. And I remember thinking, I can't remember what was going on. I mean, my daughter would have been quite young at the time, and I probably just thought, I don't need this right now. So I ended up just bidding the plant and saving all the corms in the soil. And I had quite a few. I can't remember how many there were, but there was quite a few. And I planted up those corms, and I grew a tiny, tiny plant. And I'll put in a picture of that one. Tiny, tiny plant. And again, in the last year, it has just gone bananas. And I will put in some pictures of how it looks now. But yeah, that's one has been super rewarding. To grow leaves like this big, and now those leaves are like this big, that's very rewarding and makes me feel like I'm doing something right. And yeah, I mean, there are definitely parts of plant care that can be really overwhelming at times, like pests, for example. But when things go right, you're like, oh yes, this is why we're doing it. This is why it's quite addictive, because when it goes right, you're like, sense of achievement is good. So yeah, that one is on there. And also this one, my Oxalis triangularis. Now, it's definitely looked a lot better than this. It's no doubt that it's starting to struggle a little bit with the winter. It's nowhere near as full as it was in the summer. And again, I'll put in a picture of just how full it was in the summer, because it was mind-blowing. And of course, it still looks great, and there's still a lot of leaves. There's still new growth coming in. It's under a grow light. But it's definitely dropping leaves faster than it was. And yeah, it's just not as full. And that's, again, to be expected. These plants can actually go completely dormant in the winter and then pop back up and again in the spring. So I'll keep an eye on it. If I can get it through January and February, then I know that it'll be absolutely fine. Then the spring will kick in and it will come back to life. But yeah, it's definitely a bit more stretched, a bit leggier, definitely not as full as it was, but in the summer it was just brilliant. And that was definitely like, it started the year as really quite a small plant, and then just to see it explode. And again, this was another one that when people came into the house, they were like, oh my God, how have you done that? Because their ones were struggling. And I would generally say that they come in a very, very dense, heavy soil, and they don't like that. They do like a lot of access to water, but if you get them out of that soil as soon as possible and get them into a chunkier mix, perlite, orchid bark, then you can water them quite frequently, every sort of 5 to 7 days, really drown them, and they will be really happy. If you've got them in a really dense mix and then you're watering frequently, they're just not going to be happy about that. They've got little sort of bulbs that they grow from, little tubers, and they will just rot. So I think soil health is the number one most important thing for this plant. And then of course light. These plants can literally grow outside in full sun, so you need to get it into your brightest window or under a grow light. And mine did the best when it was in my south-facing window in the summer, and it just got blasted. It will take direct sun. It just loved it. And then when it started to wilt a little bit, like, it's quite a dramatic plant. It's obviously got these very papery thin leaves and these like really skinny stems. So it can't hold on to a huge amount of water. So when it started to just wilt slightly, that is when I would water it again. And I also fed it every single water, so it had lots of food to grow. And yeah, it just loved it. So at the moment, the Christmas tree is blocking so much natural light coming into the room. And basically, once Christmas is done, I'm going to get rid of the Christmas tree. I do love it, but I also just think I'm always quite pleased once it's gone as well. Like, I'm not someone who's like sad to take down the decorations. I'm like, yeah, let's get on with the new year once Christmas is done. So sorry if that makes me sound like a bit of a Grinch, but houseplants are my priority over Christmas. So yes, I think this one will be thankful to get back into that south-facing window at some point. So yes, this one was next. And then, yeah, just a few ones to mention quickly. My Calathea albifolia, which, guys, it's still alive. This is my second albifolia. Again, I'll put in some pictures. She sits like quite a way back in my bedroom, but the winter sun comes in when it is sunny. I mean, it's pretty grey today, but when the sun does come into the room, it actually goes, because it's lower in the sky, it hits right back into the back of the room, and she gets about 2 hours or an hour of direct sun, and she absolutely loves it. It's not like she's right up against the window, so she's not going to burn. It's like quite a distance away, but she still gets flooded with light, and that is keeping her happy. She's really quite far back from the window, but like I say, it is a bright room and it is south facing, and that is keeping her really happy at the moment. The main thing with her is just, you've just got to keep the thrips away. I lost my first one to thrips, and that one I've got now has had them in the past. And every time I water that plant, I take it to the shower and shower down the leaves front and back. And that's what I've learned basically with that one. So just a quick note on that one. Just, I'm thrilled that she's still with us. That's another one that I would get into a chunky mix, and then when you water it more frequently, or she's getting a shower, you're not worried about the fact that the soil is getting too, like, you know, claggy or kind of just too wet basically. It just drains through really easily, and then I don't worry about her roots getting rotted and things like that. So yeah. Two last ones, my neon pothos, just because it finally took off on that pole, and now the leaves are like this size, and she is the top of the pole. I do have to get her off there. I'm just really anxious to do it because I have transferred some plants from one pole to another, and it's definitely taking its toll on them. One of them is my Philodendron bilietiae, which I'll talk about in a minute. So yeah, it does take its toll when you really have to start pulling the roots out of moss and trying to poke them back into a new pole. So I'm nervous to do it, and I haven't got round to it, and I just haven't quite had the energy to do it. But she's looking amazing at the moment. So yeah, that one definitely needs a shout out. And the last one is my Alocasia Silver Dragon. I'll put in some before and after pictures of her from this year too. And I just love how she's displaying at the moment. It's almost like she just, because she sits on a shelf and all the sun comes obviously onto her leaves from the front, she's completely bald at the back. But at the front, the way that her leaves are just displaying is so beautiful. And she's just not given me any drama this year. So she deserves a round of applause, because I've talked about this before. My dragon scale just croaked on me this year. Yeah. So I'm still hoping to grow her back, and she's still in rehab at the moment. So there could still be a success story there. But at the moment, she's looking very sad. And the silver dragon gets all the praise. So those are the plants I consider to be my biggest successes this year. So next we're going to talk about some planty failures. Okay, so this year's saddest plant failure, and she is now on the road to recovery again, but it hurt at the time, was my Alocasia Michelitziana. I managed to grow that plant into an absolute beast, and I will put some pictures on the screen, because she was huge and the leaves she was giving me were really big, and it looked so impressive, and I was so proud of myself, because that plant just suddenly took off, and it was like she was on her own mission. And I'll also put in a picture of when I first repotted her and the root system. Basically, I moved her out of soil and into pot, and I put under a grow light, and she just went mad. And all the roots were coming out the bottom of the pot. So I did a repot with her, and then she continued to do fantastically well. And then for some reason, I decided to do another repot, because I thought some of the leaves were looking a bit smaller, the new growth that she was giving me. And that was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that second repot, because she never really recovered from that. And then she started to drop leaves. I think I just messed with her too much, too soon, and she started dropping leaves. And then I ended up putting her into perlite, and she did make a comeback. She has now made a comeback. She's got maybe 5 leaves at the moment. She's got 2 new ones coming in. So I'll put in a picture of what she looks like now. And like I say, she's definitely on the road to recovery, but considering how full she was, it just feels like that I wasn't able to maintain that. But as I say, I didn't help the situation, and I don't know, maybe she just wouldn't be able to continue in that vein forever. I don't know many people that may manage to keep their Alocasia looking amazing year on year on year, because they are they can be quite finicky plants, and yeah, they can look amazing, and then they can go downhill quite quickly. And then when they start to go downhill, they're like, I'm on a road, I'm going downhill, and you can't stop me, there's no brakes. So yeah, I'll put in some pictures of how she looked, how she looks now. And I feel like if I can get her through the winter, the fact that she's putting out 2 new leaves now is really good. And maybe I can get her looking good again next spring and summer. That is the plan. But yeah, don't mess with her too much. I think that would be the main thing. And she's also had spider mites recently as well. So yes, that is another thing. And that's something else I will talk about a little bit of my learnings for the year. Yeah, she was the first real heartbreak of the year. The second one was the Alocasia Friday, which is obviously very similar, but it's the variegated version of the Michelitziana. I bought that plant this time last year, and that was a mistake in itself. Alocasias don't ship well ever, and they definitely don't ship well in the winter, in the cold months. They just don't like the cold, and they don't like being shipped. And so I think I was sort of setting myself up for failure. And then again, I messed with her too much, and she went from being like this beautiful thing to just dropping leaves. and then I managed to propagate some corms, and then I underwatered those corms, and I'm now just left with just a few teeny tiny corms. I'll actually just go and grab it. So this is all I'm left with. These ones down here, actually, that's another different corm. That's a cucullata one, but this one obviously here, here, and here. So I think I'm just left with 2 corms, and I can absolutely grow these into a sort of fairly decent sized plant. But considering how beautiful she was and how excited I was to have that plant, also, like, it wasn't cheap. They are getting more and more cheaper, but I think I probably paid around 60-ish, 70 quid for that plant. Or my husband did, because it was a gift. But I don't like throwing money away on plants. I don't spend money on plants like willy-nilly and then just think, oh, never mind, I'll get another one. Like, especially when you're spending like over £40. I just think, you know, the world we live in now, everything is so expensive. And so when I do treat myself to an expensive plant, I really want that plant to work. So I am gutted about that one. And I probably will replace it at some point, but definitely not until the weather improves. I feel like I've learned enough to know what to do with that plant. And I definitely repotted it too soon. I messed with it too much. Yeah, that's what I've learned some stuff. But yeah, that was another painful one from the year, financially and emotionally. My other one, which I've talked about before, and again, if you watched a couple of my videos ago where I was talking about rehabbing my plants, was my Pelea peperomodes. Again, that was like probably one of my favourite plants, one that I'd grown from a really small plant, and she just took off, and she had all these pups growing in the bottom of the pot. Again, I'll put some pictures in. She was looking so stunning. Again, another one that everyone commented on and was like, wow, how have you managed to get her to do that? I have created a whole care video on how I've done that, which again I will link below, because I don't think that anything I said in that video isn't valid. It absolutely 100% is. It's just she got to the point where I think I was always going to have to chop her, because if you think about it, as the plant continues to grow and grow and grow, the base was just getting more and more bare. And when she was more compact, that wasn't so obvious. But as all the pups grow and the plant grows, it just wasn't looking as aesthetically pleasing as it was when she was smaller. So actually, I don't think that I necessarily did anything wrong with that plant. It was just nature, right? Plants grow and they don't always look, you know, if you could freeze time, maybe you would, but that's just not always a reality. So yeah, I don't think anything necessarily went wrong with that plant, but just the reality of, as the plant loses its leaves, it's going to look more woody. And that wasn't the look that I was going for. But I do have some exciting updates. Yeah, so first of all, let me just go and get this little bare stem. So the main plant is up in my loft, so I'll put in some pictures, but the main stem has now sprouted. So we do have some little new growth on the way there. The top of the plant has now rooted, so I'll show you pictures of that as well. And this is the middle section that was basically just like the bare bit that I said I didn't really want the plant just to be having this bare section in the middle, so I decided to chop this. And you can see, obviously, it's been in water, it's got all these roots that's grown here at the bottom, and this top section here, look at all those little leaves, so cute. Yeah, so I'm really excited about it. Essentially, I could just pop that up now and that would be its own little plant, which I think is really, really cute. So yeah, I now have 3 sections of that plant. I have the base, which has got all the pups still in the bottom, and the main stem, which is now starting to produce new growth. I've got the top section, which is now rooted. So again, I've got to figure out if I want to plant that back in the same pot, or if I want to start a whole new plant. And then I've got this one as well. So yeah, although that, you know, I didn't know that that was going to happen, and I'd rather it hadn't happened. Like I say, I think always at one point it was going to be getting too tall and I was going to have to chop it. So yeah, that's what it is. And so far it's doing exactly what I wanted it to do. So I've just got to think about how I want to put it all back together to make the most sort of nice looking display, basically. But yeah, that was another one. And the other one, just to finish off talking about, is caladiums. Now, I did do caladiums this year and they were fine. They were fine. But I've never managed to get them to look as good as I did the first year I grew them, which was, I think, 3 years ago, where the size of the leaves were just massive and so beautiful. And I think every year since I've tried to grow caladiums, they just haven't been quite as rewarding as that first year. And I do have my bulbs, which I'm overwintering. And I'll probably, because I've got them, I will plant them back up again in the spring. But yeah, I'm not sure that I'm going to buy any new bulbs if those ones don't take this year. Because I just think that, one, you're adding quite a lot of new plants to your collection like one go. And I sort of struggle to find the space for them when all your plants are needing light, you know. And they just haven't been as rewarding as they have in previous years. So yeah, it's not that they were a failure per se, but just a thought on whether or not I would bother with them again. I'm not sure. But yeah, that sort of finishes my planty successes and failures from the year. And yeah, just thinking about my main takeaways from this year. I think the main thing is, I always knew, because of my job, there was a risk that I would start to feel burnt out with houseplants because, you know, some days I'm doing like 8 hours of repotting on like a big job or something like that. And then to come home and think, right, I now got to water 150 houseplants. And it didn't, the first year of me doing this job, that didn't happen. I was still really enthusiastic. I still came home and I was doing loads of stuff with my plants. This year, I've definitely felt more fatigued by my plants. And I know that's the case with some of the people that I work with, that they feel like their plants at home suffer because they spend so much time with houseplants during the day. And I wouldn't say that any of my plants have suffered. I think I've just felt more like, slightly more burnt out and like, oh, I've got to water the plants, rather than being like, oh yeah, I get to hang out with my plants, which has always been my sort of mind frame sort of previously. So yeah, I think the reality is that, not that it's taken away any of the love that I have for my plants, but maybe just that I need to think about putting aside some quality time with my plants where I'm not making content around them, and I'm just getting more chance to enjoy them. Because otherwise, with the amount that I work with plants for my job and then trying to make content when I'm at home, I can run out of time to just enjoy them. Does that make sense? So yeah, I think putting aside some time to do some stuff just for me, rather than thinking about making content with it. And I have definitely tried to do this over the last couple of months more, which is why I have not been producing a huge amount of content. It's just because I've been feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and I definitely want to make more content in the new year. I definitely have been enjoying making long form content more than I have making short form content. So I definitely haven't been producing as many reels and stuff over on Instagram. Also, I think it's worth noting that although it's not a huge amount of money, YouTube does pay you ad revenue once you get to over 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time, which I have done now. So I do get, you know, it's not a lot of money, but it's something for making content here on YouTube. Whereas on Instagram and TikTok, unless you're pumping and selling stuff like through affiliates or sponsorships or things like that, you're not getting paid anything to make that money. And although it's not about making money, it helps. Like, let's face facts, like no one can afford to plow loads of time into making content for no reward, because, you know, we've all got to make money, and life is so expensive right now. So, and I have a job and I have a young family. So time is, short. So I'd rather spend time on this platform where I can just have a chat and show my plants and not trying to think about how to beat an algorithm and make my video like 7 seconds long and try and be too clever with it all, where I can just be a little bit more relaxed and maybe get, a few quid for making a video as well. So yeah, I think if one thing I would maybe say about from this year is just, if you do enjoy like your content creators that you do enjoy watching, just make sure that you are trying to support their work by liking, sharing, subscribing. Like, I can be bad at this. Like, I'm definitely not a very good I don't comment much on people's videos that I like. And so I'm really trying to support my favorite content creators more by trying to engage more with their content. Because otherwise I've noticed that a lot of people are just not posting anymore, or they're burnt out, or they just feel like they're getting too much negative and not a lot of positive feedback. And that can be really overwhelming as well. Anyway, I've gone off on a tangent. My point being that I want to make sure that I'm still enjoying this hobby. I'm still getting joy out of it, and that I make content that I want to make that is fun for me, that's also engaging and fun for you as well. So yeah, if there's anything that you'd like to see in the new year, please let me know in the comments, and I will be happy to make that kind of content. It's always good to get some feedback from people. So yeah, that's the first thing. The second takeaway is more isn't more when it comes to plants. I think, again, a lot of people are feeling this way in the houseplant community. I definitely haven't bought as many houseplants this year as I have in previous years. And that, again, is about overwhelm. And also, I want to make sure that I'm getting the best out of the houseplants that I have. And I know that the best way to get the best out of the plants that I have, I need to be providing the best conditions. And I only have so many spots in a south-facing window or so many grow lights, right? So there's no point me bringing a plant into my collection and then I can't look after it. I can't give it what it needs, because then it's just going to die or look not very good. And then what was the point? So yes, I have been buying less plants and also really mindful about the plants that I am buying and thinking about, okay, well, where is that actually going to live? Like, do I have space for that? If that's a lower light plant, brilliant, I can put it there. But I only have so many like top spots in my house for the plants that I really love, to make sure that they are thriving. So yeah, more isn't more. And I've definitely also got rid of some plants this year that I just weren't bringing me joy, were always kind of sad. I try to always rescue my plants or bring them back to life wherever possible. But on your third rescue attempt with a plant, you just have to kind of think, do you know what? I don't need this. I could be spending this energy making the plants that I know love my conditions and love my house and my environment even better than trying to rescue this sad plant that I don't even have any love for anymore. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's another thing to take away from this year. And also, don't mess with your plants too much, Alexis. Like I say, if I've got a plant that's happy and then I'm like, oh, but maybe it could be happier. No, just enjoy it looking brilliant. Don't mess with it too much. I have definitely done that. One example, and I'm hoping it's not too late, is my philodendron bilietiae, which was looking so stunning. I put it on a moss pole, I put it into semi-hydro, it went bananas. The leaves that were giving me were like this. I've shown it on my channel before. It was a stunner. It is a stunner. It's still absolutely fine. But I decided the moss pole it was on was quite a small moss pole, and they were out of stock. If I needed to do an extension, they were out of stock of that. So I was like, okay, I'll take it off that moss pole and put it onto a bigger moss pole. And some of the roots in the pot just died. I think it was just like, hang on a minute, I was really happy. Now you've messed with me. Why are you doing this to me? and I'm hoping that I can bring it back to life. I have spent some time with it, rehabbing it this week, and I've only lost one leaf. The other leaves still look good. It's still hardening off a new leaf, and that leaf looks fine. I just hope that the roots can recover. Only time will tell. That it will continue to go on and produce, be as beautiful as it was, or be as happy as it was previously. So yeah, don't mess with your plants too much. If they seem happy, they might not get happier. They might just be at their like happy level. So yeah, that's a few things that I have learned from this year. Anything else? Yeah, I think those are the main takeaways. So yeah, let's just talk about a few personal things. As I say, if you don't care about this stuff, then that's totally fine. And thank you for listening to my planty review for 2024. Personal wise, I think, like I was saying about finding time for myself, I also need to be prioritizing my health above my plants' health. So I have struggled with problems with my joints for quite a few years now. I used to be a dog walker in my mid to late 20s and early 30s, and I started getting problems with my knees then, and I went to see somebody, and she said it's very likely that you might end up needing some intervention later on in a way of like operations on your knees. I'm now another 10 years on for that because I'm 41, and I have another physical job. My job working with houseplants means that I'm doing a lot of, when I am out and about, I do a lot of walking. And when I'm doing big repotting jobs, I'm like kneeling down, I'm lifting. It's a physical job, and I'm noticing that my body is more and more kind of annoyed with me, basically. And I need to be thinking about setting aside enough time to look after my joints, to make sure that I have enough time to exercise, I have enough time to eat healthy, because, when we're tired and our body hurts, it's very easy to not prioritize your health. It's very easy to be like, well, I can't exercise because everything hurts. It's very easy to be like, I'm too tired to cook a healthy dinner because I'm exhausted from the day. So all these things, basically, I need to make sure that I am prioritizing myself over my plant care. So if I come back from a hard day at work, rather than thinking, oh, my plants need to be watered, thinking about making time to cook myself a nice healthy food dinner and maybe do some stretches, so that kind of thing. So I think that's the main sort of personal thing for going into 2025. The other thing is that, last year I have been grieving the loss of my dad. He passed away on Christmas Day last year. So tomorrow will be his 1 year anniversary since he passed. And I think I've still, obviously, like the first year is super raw. And thankfully we do have kids, and kids make everything feel very magical, don't they? Like Christmas is like the best day of the year for them. So I'm not sure they even remember that he passed on Christmas Day, because we didn't tell them until the Boxing Day, because we didn't want to sort of, tell them that on Christmas Day. But he had been ill for some time, and he was receiving end of life care at home. So we knew it was only a matter of time, but he just happened to pass on Christmas Day. So so we're, I'm dealing with the anniversary of his passing, and also just trying to get to a place where I can remember him and smile, rather than thinking about like the painful reality of the loss, basically. So yeah, I'm still sort of getting my head around that this year. And yeah, going into 2025, I want to be thinking a bit more about getting back to like celebrating him, basically. Yes, I just want to be able to think about how we can yeah, get back to celebrating him. And I know that first year can be super, super rough. And friends that I have that have lost parents do say that with time you get to look back and remember the good times. So yeah, that's also something I'm working with. It's just a bit of a funny time of year for that reason. But on a positive note, we are hopefully moving house in the new year. It's been a bit of a palaver, I'm not gonna lie, trying to sell this house, but we put this house on the market in April. And we had so much interest, but just not a lot of offers. And yeah, and then eventually we did get an offer on our house in September. But then the way that the house market works is, here in the UK, is there's really no point in you looking for a house until you have an offer on your house, because you might find someone and be like, I love it, but you can't do anything about it unless you've got an offer on yours. So we didn't really look properly until we got an offer on ours. And then we found our dream home. Location wasn't perfect, but the house itself was amazing. And we ended up putting in an offer that was more than we wanted to, and that offer did get accepted, but then the buyers pulled out. Sorry, not buyers, the owners pulled out. So we lost that house, gutted. Then found another house, put in an offer, entered into a bidding war, lost that house. So we were like, okay. Anyway, we finally found a third house that we put an offer in on that got accepted. We've just had the survey done. That looks fine. And so hopefully, I mean, nothing's going to happen in the next few weeks because it's Christmas, but hopefully in January we'll start to think about, getting heading towards completion and so forth. So that'll be really exciting. And although moving with 150 houseplants fills me with makes me feel a bit like twitchy eye, I'm also really excited to think about where I'm going to put them in this new house. I mean, fingers crossed, everything, you never know until the actual day that you're moving if it's all going to 100% go ahead. Things can still go wrong, but fingers crossed everything will be okay. And it's got a huge south-facing kitchen, and I have currently got a north-facing kitchen, and I spent a lot of my time in here, and it's cold and it's not that bright. Even with the skylights and the door to the garden and another window over there, it's still gone midday. It's dark in here without the lights on. And that's got a big skylight and bifold doors, and that is the reason why we're buying that house, basically. The rest of the house isn't perfect. It needs, we need to do a loft conversion because there's not enough bedrooms for us all. There's things that need to be done, but that kitchen is the kitchen, and I'm really, really excited about that and where I'm going to put my plants and pottering around and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, as and when it happens, I will do a moving vlog, because moving all the plants and keeping them happy, especially because potentially we're moving in say January or February, that's going to be cold to have them in a van. And I'm hiring a completely separate van, which I will drive. I don't trust anyone to move my plants without knocking them, because they just won't look after them the same way that I would. And I don't want to I want to minimize any snapped leaves and broken stems and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be interesting. I'm starting to watch people's moving vlogs with their plants on YouTube already to get some ideas about how best to do it. But yeah, so that will be a really good start to the year as long as that all goes through. Yeah, but that's kind of how 2025 is looking. So yeah, I mean, this is Christmas Eve today. It's very unlikely I'm going to edit this today, because, my husband's taking my daughter out, but they're going to come home any second, and then it's going to have to be full on Christmas mode. Christmas movies, preparing food, all of that. And yeah, so I will probably put this out after Christmas, in between Christmas and New Year. But I wish you a very happy Christmas, healthy New Year. And thank you for being here. This is my first year on YouTube. I put my first video out in March, and that was my houseplant tour, and it's now got over 20,000 views. So it's been my most popular video, which is mad considering it was my first video. I was expecting to get like 2 views. And we're almost at 2,000 subscribers. So thank you so much if you've for being here and for watching my videos this year. I know I am not the most consistent when it comes to uploads, and I know that I love consistency out of my favourite YouTubers, and every time they put a video up I'm like, yes! So I know I need to get better. My plan for the new year is 1 video a week. My plan for this year was 1 video a week. So we'll see what happens. But I think if I'm going to put my energies anywhere, it's going to be into YouTube and less into short form. And then hopefully I'll have a little bit more time to focus on making sure I'm hitting that once a week schedule. But anyway, yes, I hope you have a fantastic Christmas and a happy and healthy new year. And I will see you in the next video. See you later.